Welcome everyone to part 1 to our serious guide to four driving on the beach and in sand conditions. This is going to be a long series, so we're going to start the very basics with this video starting off, and then we're going to work right through to the real advanced stuff. So this will be a long series. So today we'll be focusing on tyre pressures, forward drive mode selection, and a little bit on tyres themselves, what tyres you should be having. Here are some subheadings of some of the content that's coming up after as part of this series, and I encourage you to leave a comment if you think there's anything that we should cover that isn't listed in some of these subheadings. And obviously a lot of these will go into more detail in some other areas, so we may end up covering it anyway, but I encourage you to leave a comment just in case there is something that you think is important that we need to make sure we put in our part of our series. So I encourage you to leave a comment in relation to that. I also encourage you to subscribe so you can catch up and not miss any of the videos that come out, not only in relation to this series but in relation to, we're also looking at, we'll be doing reviews on four drive products that are coming in shortly, as well as our trips away, four driving and fishing, where we bring that back and show you all those places that we go. So I also want to say a big thank you to our new Patreon supporter who's jumped on board. So I want to say thank you for doing that. And if you were to consider doing that yourself, there's a link in the description below to take you to our Patreon page, where you can see the benefits you get for becoming a Patreon. But more than anything, it's about supporting us to help us continue to make these educational videos, to do our reviews on four driving products, and also to help us get away on those trips and do those four driving videos for you to bring back. But anyway, getting straight into tyre pressures. So some of these, here's a picture of some products to deflate your tyres. Doesn't really matter which one you use ultimately in the end. What's most important is that you are deflating your tyres. It is the first step you do before you change your mode into four-wheel drive. You've got to deflate your tyre. When you're heading onto a beach, some people might say you should be at 18 or 15 or whatever. But this here, the reason why we do it is for this picture, if you want to pause you can, is our footprint. So the lower PSI you get, the bigger footprint, so the bigger traction that you're able to get with the ground. So the softer the sand, the lower the pressure, so forth. You might be concerned, if I drop my PSI, how much do I lose in clearance if you don't have a lot of clearance? But some of these pictures show the tread increase is significantly increased when you do drop your pressure, even by a certain percentage, and you lose a little bit in your clearance, but you gain so much more in your footprint, and that's really important, so don't worry about that. The sand mountains I'll talk about in a minute when the video comes up a little bit later. That is better at showing that. As I said, with what pressures you should be on, there are a lot of people that encourage a certain pressure to start with. It depends on your car, the profile of your tyre, and this is why we do lower our tyre pressures. We want to avoid this. We want to avoid getting stuck if we don't have to. But yeah, what I was saying was that there may be set ones, but yeah, it really depends on your size of your tyre, your rim size, the profile, and if you're doing this where you're just churning sand and you're not going anywhere, super serial, don't keep doing that. Stop and do something, reassess, and don't make yourself worse. You can see this example here. You can see how soft and churned up the sand here is as he's trying to turn to go up a hill, whereas here right before there, the sand on the beach back from that was quite firm. So there's a difference that quite often happens, and you must be willing to adapt to those changes, and you might need, and we'll touch on in later videos, how to adjust to those conditions. But yeah, brush is super serious stuff. So this is the picture video I was talking about. It gives me an example that we'll cover in more detail. At the moment he's in someone else's tracks. This is great. If they're great, nice and smooth like this, someone's already compacted that sand down, so it makes it easy to drive in. At the moment, now he's creating what we call sand mountains, where he's actually driving on no track in front. He's pushing the sand forward, creates little mountains of sand consistently all the time, and your tyres are constantly having to try and grab them and climb over them, and that's essentially what's happening, and then flattening and firming the surface underneath. So that's why we encourage you jumping on someone else's tracks, because you know it's already been firmed up. as long as it's not all bumpy and stuff, but we'll cover some of that in later videos. This one here is taken of us when this is my car actually, filming a recovery video, and I didn't put my tyre pressures up because I had to put them up to get it deliberately bogged. You'll see me a lot of sand in the area right now coming out the back of the car. I've gone up that track you can see right in front of the camera to the top, and then I've come back down because I wasn't able to get up. I've tried to go forward and I wasn't able to, so I've had to get out. And all I need to do is deflate my tyres a certain percentage, a few more PSI, and I drove straight out. And that can be the difference between having to recover your car and not. A few PSI. So think about the tyre pressure and adjusting and adapting as you need to, depending upon the conditions. And if you find, for some example, if you're on a beach and you stop for whatever reason and you go forward and you put your foot flat to the floor and the tyres don't turn, but you're not really bogged and you're not bottomed out, you don't know why that's happening, you may find that if you put your car into forward low and move and try again, you can't actually turn those tyres. Yeah, low tire, if you got pressures down, if you got something with sensors, that's a good thing. You see those sensors, that's good. We want to see that. And as I said, for me, on this, for my tyre pressure, for my tyre profile, I'd be sitting on 20 PSI on this beach. But as you notice, adapt to the conditions. So for this beach, 20 PSI for me on my tyres. If I go to Lansing, I know the set places there I need to be on, say, 15 PSI. When I did Calcutta Hill, I was sitting on, say, 11 or 12 PSI because it increased my footprint to get up the hill. That's quite soft. But it does depend, and you need to adapt. And different profile tyres, so if you've got a bigger rim size, you may need to lower your pressures more than, say, somebody else. So it's not a fixed amount. You fluctuate depending upon the conditions, your tyre and your vehicle. You start off somewhere and then work within those realms. So we're going to touch on tyres, not too much in the great detail in relation to this because we will talk about it later. But these are the three types, but there are a lot in between. So you got highway trains and all trains. Those are they're the ones we really consider for sand and beach. Mud trains aren't really relevant for this topic. If you want to pause again, you can do on any of these if you want to look at more detail. But it's important to note the difference in the rim size, how much more rubber you get. And it's important to have that rubber because that rubber allows you to deflate more to get more footprint. Increases your footprint. So smaller rim, bigger profile tyre, more footprint. And also want to talk about light truck construction tyres, so that LT mode there. They're different from passenger tyres, and they're really great when it comes to off-road tyres because they are designed with stronger sidewalls, which is really important when we deflate our tyres. We want the traction on the sidewalls that help give us the extra boost and stops or helps prevent chipping and cracking. It's also designed to handle the heavier loads and to tow heavier loads. And generally you find them with a more aggressive tread pattern, and they'll generally grip a little bit better in the wet. So that's why light truck construction tyres are a good option if you are looking at new tyres for your car, for your four-wheel drive. That's the way I'm going with mine. That stronger sidewall is important. And yeah, there are a lot of different models and manufacturers and all different settings for four-wheel drive mode selections. So as long as you've got 4 high and 4 low, that's the most important thing that we'll look at. But a lot of more expensive cars will have a lot of options like rear diff lockers, front lockers, hill descent, hill ascent controls, all sorts of option traction controls. There's a bunch of options to choose from, and sometimes it can be confusing as to which one to use and when. But as long as you've got 4 high and 4 low, it's the most important stuff, and we can talk about using ones in other scenarios. Picture before, looks like it was probably going a bit too quick, but I would have been in 4 low for that scenario. This is just me on my trike and showing you me changing how I change mine. Obviously your car is going to be different if you're not driving a trike, or a Mitsubishi that runs with this type of forward driving system. So I have 4 high, but then this one has a set central diff locker, so it sends power to the front and rear 50-50. I turn off traction control because it doesn't do it manually. You see the light will flash on the right down the bottom there in a second. Turns off traction control because it interferes with driving on the beach. I'll hear a funny noise coming from the back as it interferes with me trying to drive. So it has to go off. It really does become a pain when you're driving off-road. Now I have to put mine in a 4 low. I have to be in neutral for this. A lot of cars generally do. When that goes in a 4 low, it gives you more torque at the lower end. And like I said, if you were stuck, and that I have factory rear diff, and when it comes engaged, you see it flashes down there at the bottom, at the top, and it turns off my ABS and it turns off a bunch of other stuff. That does it manually when everything's engaged. And that's my car when it's at its peak of all of its features engaged. And I'd use that in certain scenarios. So you may have more, you may have less. It really can depend upon the car model, car type. But as long as you've got 4 high and 4 low, you can work within those realms by working with other methods of either tyre pressures and so forth. And aftermarket options are also an option. But anyway, it depends. So you can have lots of bonuses with your differences with your car. Like I said, you can have ones with front lockers, so ones with hill ascent controls, some that automatically sense stuff, all different functions. But as long as you know the basics, then hopefully this will help. So what to pick? So for this example here, you can tell looking at it, these dunes aren't that soft. You see by the tracks in front of the vehicle, they're not sinking in that deep. So you know that this would be a 4 high scenario because I don't need that low down torque. I'm not sinking in that deep, and I'm happy to go on at quite nice speeds because as long as I've got right tyre pressures, this is fine for 4 high. Yeah, it can seem confusing at times as to the choices and which one you go for. Here's another beach. I would be in 4 high 4 as well because it doesn't look that deep in sections, but it can be deceiving, and we will cover in future videos about that. This one's a perfect example of rear diff lockers and when to use them. You see now that left rear hand tyre is no longer spinning, but the right hand is. So that rear diff locker would actually keep those wheels, both of those back spinning all the time at the same time. A couple of pictures of scenarios, like this might be a 4 high. We'll talk about how to get out of things like that. And here we've got one where, this isn't a video, it's just the image, but that's quite soft where he is. So this would be, pressure would be important for that one. And being in low probably. This one here, you can tell that he is barely making an impact on that surface. That is really firm surface. So you'd be in 4 high for this. It's almost like driving on the road almost. But I'd say stay in 4 high because of you never know as the beach continues, it can change. You can be driving on really hard stuff and then all of a sudden it can start getting softer. So, you don't want to end up like this where you've got no traction. So it's always important to maintain the right mode in the right scenarios. So here's some images, video from where we were at Wellington Dam. We're coming down this hill. Now this is probably a bit different because we're coming down it. 4 high would be great, and if you got hill descent control, even better. It helps control the pace of the car so it doesn't get dragged down by gravity too much. We're worried more about the fact that because this is quite firm and rocky surfaces, as you maneuver your car down, some parts was where your tyres are going to have to flex and you may lose traction. So if I was coming up this, I'd be in 4 low for certain, and I'd definitely probably have my diff locks on for sure, particularly if it was wet. Not that bad, but yeah, if that's an over exaggeration. This is just to show you that this is a 4 low scenario where you want to go slow, you want to pace it through, as you may lose traction on 1 or more tyres at a time, using extras if you have them, having diff locks if you have them. Downhill not so much, but uphill definitely, and particularly in the wet. That 4 low helps slow it down. So I want to say a big thank you to our Patreon supporters. As I mentioned, the link in the description if you want to help us out, that'd be greatly appreciated. Make sure, if you can, subscribe, like, it helps us out immensely and it keeps us able to punch out these videos for you. So I hope you enjoyed this and I look forward to delivering the next one for you. Thank you very much everyone, and I'll catch you later.